If you can post on your Snapchat story pictures of you crying, you don't want help for your problems. You don't. You just want the feelings of significance attached to people saying, oh my God, what's wrong? Or the good feelings that come along with getting attention for complaining about your problems, which is why I'm always like, no, I'm not going to tell you what you need to hear because you don't actually want to hear it. You just want to feel good complaining about whatever the fuck is going on. The biggest problem I see in at least today's society, especially with the younger crowd, is getting attention for your problems. And until you decide to not get attention for your problems, you're going to keep those problems.
People search for significance. People search for problems. They need problems. When inherently you don't have any problems. You believe you have problems, but it's all a belief. It's all it is. If you're creating problems to gain significance, to gain the attention of others, those problems aren't going to be fixed anytime soon. They're only going to be worse because you're only healing potentially the symptoms and not the root cause of the problem. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 38th episode of the Conscious Cast. I'm your host, Cal, along with my other boy, Mr. Jason Scalora. So today we're going to be talking about a wide range of topics. We haven't even decided it, but you know, today I was thinking about something and I brought this up to you a little while ago. You know, I was outside, I was meditating, and I was like, it's not about what you have. It's about what you have.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And it's not about where you are. It's about where you are. Right. And so I was kind of reflecting on that. And the
people listening right now, they're like,
what the
what?
It's just like, what, dude? Let's go to like ass backwards paradox type of thing. And so flashback like a year ago. I watched this Ralph Smart video, and like when I first heard the phrase, it's not about where you are, it's about where you are. He was sitting on a beach talking to like another. You good, bro?
Yeah. Sorry.
So I just eat my plant-based protein. Fucking vegan. No, I'm just. Anyways, so drink it.
All right. Relax.
I'm sorry, I'm just so hopped up on my
just fucking chill, bro. All right, Christ.
All right, yeah, so we're back in it. Oh fuck. All right. So yeah, Ralph Smart, you don't know him. 2 million subscribers on YouTube, self-growth, motivational speaker. He was like 4 or 5 years ago, he was sitting on a beach in like, I think it was Venice Beach with another influencer. And he was just talking about like this phrase. He's like, it was like pretty much the whole topic of the video. It's like, it's not where you are, it's where you are. And he's like, it's not necessarily about the location you're in. It's about where you are internally, right? Like what is your internal state, right? Because that is like if you try and go somewhere, right? And you think your internal problems will be fixed, you are wrong, right? Because, and it's similar to the phrase, it's not about where you are, or no, it's not what you have, it's what you have, right? It's not about these materialistic possessions. It's not about wealth. It's not about status. Not about all these beliefs, right? That are just beliefs that we think we have and things like property and the like, you know? It's about what you naturally have, right? Like your natural ability to enter a meditative state, your natural ability to control your response to things, right? And it's about this. And when you start to realize what you really have versus what you believe you have, this is when I believe you'll find true happiness, right? Yeah. Because I was watching this video yesterday, and it was about self-inquiry. And pretty much the guys, it was, you know how gurus have like stages where they pretty much just talk and people ask them questions. Yeah. So one of the ladies was like, "What is the cause of my unhappiness? What I was like in this relationship, and like ever since this relationship, I've just had very bad unhappiness." And he said, after he like, you know, explained it, walked her through like this reflection process, he said, "Your unhappiness is not necessarily all due to the relationship that you're in, like maybe partially, but." He said, the cause of your unhappiness is your identification with these thoughts, feelings, sensations, right? That you consider to be yourself, right? But they're not actually yourself. They pass through you, but they aren't actually you, right? And so on that basis, that's very similar to what you have versus what you actually have, right? It's that underlying awareness that all this like content, all these beliefs like property, you know, that pass through your life and that you say that you are and that you think is the cause of your unhappiness, but it's actually not.
Yeah.
The true cause and the true source of happiness is finding that place within you that's unchanging, is always there, is untouchable until, I guess you could say, the day you die, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's this unchanging thing that is like awareness, you know, that you're always in. And so that, to me, it's like, it's not about where you are, it's about where you are in terms of being aware of that state within you, being aware of that natural process within you.
Yeah. I mean, immediately what it makes me think about is like, because if you ask people, like, what are you doing, right? Like our episode where we talked about people going into career paths, majoring in things that they don't give a shit about. And you ask them, okay, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Eventually, you're going to it's going to boil itself down to the rawest form, which is you're after an emotion. You're after positive feelings, right? You don't want the Lamborghini. You want the good feelings that the Lamborghini is going to give you, whether it's you actually really love cars, and so you just feel good having a nice car because that's how you were raised, or most of the time, you like the feeling of people saying, oh my God, what a sick car, dude. Like, you like that feeling, right? But it has nothing to do with the Lamborghini in and of itself, right? Because the Lamborghini is just molecules, right? You know what I mean? It's metal, it's tires, it's a steering wheel. Like, objectively, the Lamborghini means nothing.
It's just neutral.
Right? But so does your job. So does the fat paycheck. So do all of these things. Yeah, okay. Money is a means to an end where you can get food, shelter, water. I get that. I get that. But what I'm getting at is that people really misunderstand the fact that what you're after is a feeling. You're after a specific emotion. But nobody wants to admit that. Nobody wants to put that in the forefront of their brain because it's a scary thought. Because a lot of times, if you have that conversation with people, you poke and prod a bit, and you get down to, yeah, I don't really enjoy my job, and eventually you're like, okay, why? And you're like, well, benefits and a paycheck or whatever they're gonna say, and you're like, okay, but why? But why? But why? And they're like, well, I just want to be happy. It's like, exactly. So why are you doing accounting, right? Why do you have a 9 to 5 in a cubicle and hate your life? Why? Because you can have a nice paycheck and you support the family, whatever. Like, I get shit's hard. I get it, right? But if what you're after is an emotion, why are you still doing the same things over and over again, right? And there's a lot of irony with it because most of those people are miserable, and they're doing it for the money but they're not doing it for the money. They're doing it for the emotion. They're not doing it for the benefits. They're doing it for the security or the safety, the emotion that comes along with that, right? And so again, if what you're after is a certain emotion, whether it's happiness, a feeling of certainty, a feeling of significance, or whatever, do things to meet those needs. Don't get a safe and secure job because you think that's what you need. Do things to meet those needs. Keep asking yourself why. Why do I want this? Why do I want this? Why? Oh, I just want to feel good. And you'll get to the point of, okay, I probably should switch things up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. Because what you pointed out there a lot was like, it was right on the money, right? Because similar, like within that video that I watched yesterday, he said, you know, we always feel the same type of unhappiness in all these different type of situations, right? It's always that same type of emotion, right? So it's all these different connections going to this unhappiness feeling, right? And so with that, I think a lot of people will think of unhappiness, right? And they think, this is kind of going back on the point that I was saying before, they think what they have in their life is what is causing that unhappiness. And so when they think that that is what is causing their unhappiness, they're missing that underlying, I guess you could say, fact or truth that's really is what is causing their unhappiness, you know,
Right.
Because a lot of people will like think, okay, once I get the job, the family, the X, Y, and Z, like I'll be happy, right? And I was literally thinking about this morning, like as I was washing dishes. I was like, I'm always in such a natural state of just becoming, right? Like always striving for my next goal. And like we've touched on this before, like where you're really happy, where the real joy comes in is the process to getting to that goal,
Right.
you know. But putting that to the side for just a second, it's like when we're always in that state of just becoming, and we're so fixated on that end goal, the present moment always appears to be a means to an end. Like
Right.
the present moment is the end.
Right.
That is the end, right? And so a lot of people, like, yes, of course, like we've talked, like this was literally the last episode we talked about, like strive for goals, right? Like see that you have flaws and improve them, of course, you know. But if you can't recognize the wholeness and the completeness of the present moment, and like look at the isness of like this moment here and now, you're always gonna feel in lack, right? You're always gonna feel less than, you know.
Yeah.
And if you're always like, when you're in that type of state, when you're just always feeling like you never tangibly have what you think you need, that's when you're mistaken, because you always do have what you need.
Right. Well, it's just a matter of focus,
Exactly.
right? Because like,
100%. Yeah.
if you can still be striving for the next and better version of
Yep,
you,
yep.
which, by the way, is a goal that doesn't exist. There's no finish line for that.
Yeah.
But if you can be consistently for the rest of your life striving for that and be in the present moment throughout the whole process.
Yep.
It's just a matter of how focused are you, right? And not for nothing, the irony of it is that if you're not in the present moment when you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to do a much worse job at whatever it is that you're doing, right? Because if I'm here with you, right, but I'm just trying to be the best life coach ever or whatever I'm trying to do, and while we're in the podcast, I'm thinking about, oh, what am I going to do with marketing here? Or what am I going to do with my social media pages this way or whatever? Then this podcast is going to turn out shit, right? Which is, do you understand what I'm saying? It's self-fulfilling. It's the opposite of what I actually want. So being in the present moment is actually helping you in every step of the way to becoming the best version of yourself. But what I'm getting at is that just because you are inadequate, and we all are, just because there is a difference between you and your full 100% potential, which there always will be, doesn't mean you have to be focused on the next step, the next step, the next step, the next step while you're taking this step, right? Because it's pointless. Because if you do that, if your mind, right, if your thoughts, if your focus is always on what you're going to do next, what you have to do tomorrow, what's next, or even worse, what happened yesterday, how somebody did you wrong, who fucked up this way, who did you wrong that way. But if you're always focused on who did you wrong, or anything on the past or anything on the future, and anything besides where you are right now, you're going to feel anxious and depressed. It's a byproduct of living outside of the present moment, right? And again, the irony of it is that if you do want to maximize and you are an overachiever, great. But the way to be the best and highest achiever is to live in the present moment, because when your focus is where you are and where your feet are, life is infinitely better. Infinitely better.
Yeah, and like you said, it's just a matter of focus, because you're never not in the present moment, right? It's just your attention is elsewhere, right? Your attention is like in the like the future and the past are just a mere idea. The future and the past are illusions, right? All you have is now, right? And so,
right, because the past, everything that has happened and will happen is not going to happen in the future or the past. Anything that's going to happen is going to happen now.
No, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
Because that's all there ever is.
And like imagine a person that, and like, you know, due to our culture and just like natural conditioning, like that we live in, like we naturally think of the future, right? But then when that's your predominant state, you're always fixated on the future. And like I said before, you're always treating the present moment as a means to an end, and like you're devaluing this moment. But like when I said before, like, oh, everything you need is right here, right now. Like, of course, like you have basic, like if you don't have your basic needs met, like I get that. Put that to the side, but let's just make that an assumption, right? You have all your basic needs met. What I meant by you have everything you need now, I meant that you have everything you need to be whole and complete, right? Because like no matter what, your flaws, mistakes, your perceived flaws, right? Yes, they are flaws, but they are whole and complete as they are. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast before, because they're only flaws because you believe they're flaws, right? Because you set that goal, you set that standard of where they could be, right? And that leaves a margin of error, right? And so that margin of error is just, once again, an idea, right? And of course, it is good to move towards that standard and move how you naturally are towards that other side because it's more preferable for you and others. But recognize in that instance that that flaw is whole, right? And if you get rid of that standard, if you get rid of that, this could be a standard that maybe you created or someone else created that you just believe in. Fuck, dude. Anyways, fuck. But yeah, like once you realize like that standard that you created or someone else created is it's just a mere idea, just a thought, right? And it can be. We're not talking about good or bad here, right? It's just how it is. Right. You can realize that in it of itself, in and of its whatever the fuck it is, it is whole and complete, right? That little phrase was whole and complete. All right, I don't want to hear it. All right? It's well, like once again, it's just that type of standard of how we think things are, how we want things to be, that desire, right? Kind of negates how things are right now, right?
Yeah. Well, I think people, I mean, even for me, it's really hard to grasp the concept of how contradictory the ideas are, right? So like if you're looking at things like self-confidence, for example, right? And I'm telling you, if you want to be confident, that shit is earned, right? Yeah. Which means every day you need to be doing the things to meet the standards for your life, right? If you're not working out and taking care of your body and not eating healthy, you don't deserve to feel confident about your body. Can you have standards that are too high and you should lower them? Yes. Should you still have standards? Yes. But that doesn't mean that you're not perfect as you are right now in this moment as you're watching this or listening to this. Because you are. And you know how I know that? Because it is.
Yeah.
Like now, like right now, you are where you are, who you are, however much you weigh, how you feel, anything. And it has to be perfect because it is how it is. It is impossible to change right now. In the same sense of how it's impossible to change 2 seconds ago. Impossible. Which means it had to have been perfect because it was. Does that make sense?
No, 100%.
But in the same token, like, there is the flip side to the coin, right? And people, we're human beings. We want a cookie cutter answer, things that are black and white and easy to understand, but it's not, right? So when you look at things, like I said, like self-confidence, it's really hard to understand that you are perfect as you are right now because you are where you are, but that version of you is insufficient tomorrow, a week from now, a month from now. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because in the present moment, you can see into the future, right? Once again, the idea of the future, right? And we can recognize this is whole and complete, but we could be like, wait a minute, there's opportunity for change, right? If I set this standard and like, I can improve my life, right? Even though in a sense that improvement is kind of an illusion because there really is no goals, there really is no standards, right? It's just that idea that we believe in. We could still do it, right? And this is kind of getting into like a little metaphysics type of crap, but you know, we're not getting into that right now, but that's what I was just previously saying. But like you said before, there's two types of perfection here, right? There's the perfection that human beings identify as, right? And it's like well, you pointed out
Kim Kardashian. Yeah, like, she's perfect.
Exactly.
Have you seen her ass?
That shit is big as hell.
And she's rich. That means she's perfect.
Yeah, but it's just like that. that type of like perfect human being that you have in your head, right? It's an illusion, right? You're always going to keep improving. You're never going to reach that 100% perfect version of you. Yeah. But then there's also, like you pointed out, the perfection of this moment, right? It's not the same type of perfection that human beings say, right? Yeah. It's just the wholeness and the completeness of this moment, right? It's perfect. It is what it is. It's how it is. It's what it is. Right. It's where it is. Right?
It's inarguable.
Yep.
Because it's right now. It has to be.
Yeah.
There's nothing more true. Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. And I think a big point to make here is like, just because things are whole and complete, you cannot, and this is something we touched on this a few episodes ago. You cannot use that as a justification for the positioning you're in.
That's what I was just about to say. Is like, we're human beings, and the way that we are wired is for progress.
Yeah.
That's why whenever you notice any even little small increment of progress towards anything, you get this massive rush of dopamine throughout your body, because that's your body's way of telling you, this is good, do this more, make progress. That's what's kept us alive, right? If we didn't get that great feeling that came along with making progress in caveman times, when it was you're taking another step towards the animal that you're hunting, or the tree with the fruit on it that's going to feed your family and keep you alive, if you didn't get that dopamine with just each step towards the tree, not just when you get the food, not just when you have the berries in your hand, if you didn't get that dopamine with every single step, we would have no drive to get to the tree. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's why we have the need to make progress. That's why we have the need to make progress. But then you have this spike of dopamine when you get the berries off the tree, when you get the apple off the tree, when you reach the animal, when you kill the animal, when you bring it back, right? You get that dopamine. But in the span of time, it's here. But you have all this other area, which is called progress, right? And people are so focused on this, on this little tiny area. Oh, when I get there, I'll be happy when. I love when people say that. I'll just be happy when, I graduate and I have a secure job. I'm like, no, you won't, because you're not going to be doing anything different. You're just going to reach the end goal. You're going to have, ta-da, you're going to have a couple beers and get wasted with your friends, and then
be fun for 5 minutes.
Nope, no. I'll be super happy actually then.
Yeah.
But even when I say it now, like, you could realize, like, oh, that does kind of sound stupid. You think that just this one area is what's going to make you happy indefinitely for the rest of your life.
Yeah. They're missing who they actually are.
Yeah.
Right. I've said this so many times on the podcast, like Jay, Cal, right? This is just the story that we tell ourselves, right? It's just, you guys want some truth, right? Your life is just a thought. Think about that. It's just a collection of thoughts, memory, feelings, sensations. You want a black and white answer? That's a black and white
That
fucking
is a black and white answer.
And a lot of people don't want to hear that, right? They think they're just like this huge, extravagant thing, right? That's like way more than just a thought, right? Who are you before this world, humanity told you who you were? That's the question you want to explore. That's the real self-inquiry that you need to dive into, because that is where you'll find happiness, right? And if you're worried about finding happiness and you think that, once you get this, and once you have found that what external things such as status, wealth, money, the like, have not brought you happiness, this is where I think individuals can start to explore within themselves and explore the unknown, right? Because like I was saying before, they have this part within themselves, this unchangeable, unarguable part that their life flows through, right? The story of their life flows through. It's silent. It doesn't speak up, right? It's always there though. And you can become aware of that thing within you. And it's as simple as this. It's your awareness, right? And once you become aware of your own awareness, right, so much, like you begin to see the false self from the real self, right? And the real self has no label. The real self has no identity, right?
Nothing has any label.
Exactly.
Nothing has any identity. And that's why I'm so big on focus and meanings, right? Because like you said, life is just sensations.
Yep.
It's just lights, colors, sounds, things that you feel and touch and taste, and then you die.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
If you're an alien looking at human beings, like, that's all that's going on, right? We would have, aliens would have no idea, why the fuck is he, doing a podcast? What the fuck is a podcast? Why is that? Why is he doing that? Or whatever, right? But it's because you can attach any meaning you want to any experience. Literally.
Yeah.
Literally. As fucked up as life can get, the best example I can give, and I sound like a broken record with it, but it's Viktor Frankl.
Oh my God.
In the Holocaust, comes out experiencing joy, happiness, and gratitude. The power of giving things meaning. Because it's a choice.
Yeah.
Even if things are as fucked up as they can get, to the extreme, it's still a choice. Once you can develop a new habit of thought, your whole life is going to change. Because what you focus on is what you feel. And the meanings that you decide to give things are going to greatly determine how you feel, right? And so the example that Ivan gave on my podcast was like, he drops his protein powder and it falls all over the floor, right? If you're unconscious and not thinking about anything, you can give it the meaning of, what the fuck? I just spent $50 on this protein. Now it's all over the floor. I have to clean it up. My life fucking sucks, right? You can do that. More power to you if you want to feel that way. But that's a choice. That meaning is a choice, right? But somebody like Ivan, and it's not fake, corny optimism, right? But most people are going to listen to this and be like, oh, that's fucking bullshit. He was pissed. Don't fucking lie about it. No, like he has trained his mind to when moments like that come up, think, okay, for him, it's God. God gave this to me. Maybe if I didn't drop my protein powder, I would have left the house 30 seconds earlier and I would have gotten hit by a car, right? Whatever happens in life happens for me, not to me. And that's a choice. That's a complete choice. And you could choose that for absolutely everything, right? And you look at the people who are the happiest people on earth, those are the exact same people that are going to tell you that. They're going to tell you every single struggle that they have been through, all the hardships, everything that's been super fucked up in their life, the shitty cards that they've been dealt, have been the greatest things that have ever happened to them because they've used those things to make the world a better place and to make themselves a better person, right? But it's all a choice of perspective because you could just sit there and moan and whine and complain about how shitty and fucked up things are and say, woe is me, and be the victim. Or you can have the perspective of, okay, this sucks, yes. Yes, it's not easy, of course, but life is suffering, and I'm going to use what I can use and make my life and other people's lives better as a result of this shitty hand I was dealt. But that's all a choice. The meaning that you decide to give it is a choice.
Yeah, the world is a blank canvas that we can paint on.
Exactly.
Freely. And it's a couple things with that, because one time you live on campus, right? So they got some banging breakfast sandwiches, right? So I did a whole video on this. I'm pretty sure I've told you this before. Maybe not. So pretty much one time I wait, sometimes those lines get long, right? Really long, but it's worth the wait. So I must have waited like 25 minutes in line to finally get my order up there. So I'm waiting in line, right? And I go up to the guy, and I'm just like, oh, can I get a tofu scramble? And he's like, he looks me dead in the eyes, and he goes, we don't have any tofu. And just like Ivan, when he dropped that protein powder, I got that spike of how I naturally felt in that moment, right? I was like, oh my, I was about to make this huge, big, like, not like scene, but like in my own body, right? I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? Just keep thinking about it and let it like dictate my mood, dictate my attitude. Yeah. Or I just be like, fuck it, whatever. And not take on that suffering.
Yeah. And it relates back to like what we were saying earlier about the perfection of the present moment, right? And you can, again, it's meaning, right? Because you can look at it and think, okay, like, did I just waste 25 minutes in line? That's a choice. Is that time really wasted? Is it wasted? My answer is no, right? Because you can use that as any sort of meaning you want. Again, I always take it to the extreme because it's the easiest way to understand it. Maybe if you had waited in line and you waited 25 and you didn't wait the 25 minutes and maybe you waited 20 minutes instead, or you actually did get your tofu or whatever it is that could have happened differently, then maybe you would have walked out, slipped and fell and cracked your head because you would have walked out at the perfect time for that to happen, right? But you were meant to wait in line 25 minutes and not get your tofu so that things would turn out the exact way that they were supposed to turn out for you, right? But you can't see that alternate universe that would have played out. You can't, right? But the choice of this happened for me, not to me, is a complete choice. But people really think, no, you just don't understand me. You don't understand how fucked up my life is. My dad and mom did this. They said this. They did these drugs. I'm fucked up here. Listen, I get it. I get it. And I have a lot of sympathy for you. I have a lot of compassion for you. I have a lot of sympathy for those people. Fuck me.
I shouldn't have said anything. You're good. All right, you have a lot of sympathy. You want me to start?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Just need like...
All right, you did. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
All right.
You want me to go?
I have a lot of sympathy for those people, right? Life can get
This fucking guy, dude.
shit. Life can get fucked.
It's a matter of perspective. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. Life can be fucked up. Things are gonna be
fucking crying right now. Oh man. Ooh. Ooh. I'm literally fucking crying, dude. I'm literally fucking... Oh. All right. I think I'm good.
Okay. It's all a matter of perspective.
Yep.
That's all I was saying. Because
holy shit, dude.
it makes it harder because we're trying not to laugh. So we gotta not try and not laugh. If we're gonna laugh, we're gonna laugh. Okay? Like if it needs to go in the episode, it can go in the episode. Like
no, I'll throw this in there.
If we're gonna laugh, we're gonna laugh.
Yeah.
That's actually a big part of what I realized, like of recording.
Yeah,
is like you just gotta not try and force any feelings. That's when the rawest forms come out. But basically, you have the choice over any meaning you want to give life. Anything that happens, if it's fucked up or not, you have the choice of the meaning that you can give it. And if Viktor Frankl, this is what I said in my podcast, if Viktor Frankl can go through the Holocaust and be in a concentration camp and come out feeling joy and gratitude and happiness, then you could feel joy and gratitude and happiness when you have too much milk in your fucking coffee. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think it's not necessarily the perspective you come up with, because let's just say you don't believe in God, right? You don't believe in fate, right? Like, just like, okay, if I step outside the dining hall and I slip and fall, right? Like me waiting the 25 minutes, like it was God's plan or whatever. Like,
well, what do you mean in fate?
So something that was out of my control, out of my choice, right? It was God, it was fate, right? And so in that instance, we don't have to get into that little discussion.
I was just curious.
No, yeah. So that's what I mean by fate. But it's not even necessarily the type of perspective that you're coming up with. Like, yeah, it is important to come up with that perspective, but it's just beyond on the surface of it. It's like coming up with that perspective, realizing that your attitude is dictated by the perspective you hold, right? And so if you decide to change that perspective, you change the type of emotions you take on, the type of feelings you take on, right? And so once you begin to do that, right, like you said with Yvonne and myself, and I'm sure you, when those situations come up and you realize the perfection of the world, right, the pointlessness of the world, right, like the world is pointless, right? But we give it meaning, right? And we realize that there is no inherent meaning, right, when I wait in line for 25 minutes and I don't get, the guy's just like, sorry, we don't have any tofu, right? Okay, I could take that and I could just react how I would normally react, or I could take a proactive approach and be like, oh, well, let me stay present and just go and get some food elsewhere.
But people don't understand that you like, it sounds like way far-fetched out there. You can train your brain to the point where even if, like, you can get to a point where, like, you have a flight booked, right? It's super important that you get there. It's a super important business meeting. Maybe it's the most important business meeting of your life. You spend all these hours packing, doing all the shit. You go through all the lines in the airport, go through all this stuff. It's a 2-day process, whatever. And you get to the front of the line, and the lady says, no, your ticket's invalid. You have to go home. And you can be, okay. You literally can get yourself to that point. Yeah. Right?
It's hard, though.
But of course. Yeah. But what else do you have?
I was like, oh, damn, that would suck.
Exactly. Right?
But
Me too. I'm not at that point where I would be like,
oh, no.
Great. So, right? But you really, really can get to that point. Yep. It's just a matter of how you're spending your time.
Yeah. It's like the extent to which because we are human beings of like value judgments, right? Like we set like certain situations, right? Like, yeah, they're objectively they're neutral, right? But they affect us to different extents, right? So compare the tofu situation to missing your flight. Like that missing my flight, like that's going to have way more of a like significant impact due to the consequences that situation holds.
Perceived consequences.
Perceived consequences, exactly. Like what we like the effects that we think are going to happen, right? Because we can base that off the future, right?
Right. But that's resistance to reality.
Okay.
That's all that is. Because you think that whatever was supposed to happen was supposed to happen the way you thought it was supposed to happen.
Yep.
It's resistance to whatever is. It's
Yeah.
resistance to the perfection of now, of how life is, right? And when you do that, when you create that resistance, which is in yourself, not in the world, because again, everything's objective. You missing a flight means nothing to a fucking tree, right?
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But your idea that you were supposed to be on that flight is what creates that resistance. But if you could train your brain to the point to understand that however it did play out was supposed to be how it played out, you won't have that emotional reaction anymore. If you can create that new habitual pattern of every single time something happens where it didn't work out in the way where you had hoped it was going to work out, where it didn't work out the way you had hoped it was going to work out, and understand that it is perfect and that life is happening for you, not to you, whether you miss a flight or there's too much milk in your coffee, or even to the point where, yes, I know it sounds grandiose, but you're in a concentration camp in the Holocaust, you will completely be set free of all these
perceived
of the handcuffs that your brain is put in from your misconception of how reality's supposed to go, and because there's a difference between what you wanted versus what reality is.
Yeah, and then when you don't get what you wanted, right, those expectations, right, and something else happens, you're bound to be disappointed. You're bound to take on all these negative emotions. And one of the big things from Stoicism that I practice on a regular basis is called negative visualization. And I'm sure you've heard of this, like pretty much where you imagine pretty much a scenario, the opposite scenario of what you think is like the opposite scenario of what you want to happen, right? And just be aware. So like, for instance, like earlier this week, I like went into work from 11 to 2, right? And then they were like, okay, if we need you to come back in, which we most likely won't, we'll text you, right? And so I was like, I immediately was just like, oh, I got the rest of the night off. I'm chilling, right? But then I was like, wait, Cal, I got to prepare myself to be ready to go back into work, because if they shot me with that text and I just was like completely fixated and expected to just stay at home, right, I would get this like huge level of disappointment. And this once again applies to the extent of the situation you're in, right? You negatively evaluate or visualize the situation, right? You visualize like a situation in your head that helps you prepare, right? Helps you be aware of a certain outcome that could happen. Then when that outcome does happen, you're not nearly as disappointed as you used to be, right? And so I have found that to be tremendous in terms of helping me prepare, be ready, humble myself in terms of the outcome in the situation, not be as attached to the outcome of the situation, because I think that's also a big part of it too, because if you're so fixated on creating reality and manipulating reality to meet what you want, you're going to take on a lot of attachment, right? A lot of suffering, right? Because there's so much bondage there. Right. And I think a big thing too with, controlling your response to situations, choosing the meaning, choosing the perspective that you take is surrendering and accepting what happens, right? So like if you're able to negatively visualize, right, and you're able to do these different types of techniques, you'll be better able when, say, like your flight or your ticket's invalid or whatever the hell, to surrender to that moment, accept it, and be like, okay, I choose my response. I choose the meaning I give it, and you minimize the suffering, right? And you're also in alignment with how the world actually is.
Right. I mean,
while still moving towards those goals.
Exactly. Right. I mean, personally, I don't know any monks personally, but it would be...
I do. No, I'm kidding.
It would be of my guess that if you were to take a monk and tell him, okay, give him the whole flight scenario and say that he's going to go home, or he's going to go wherever, right? You're going to do this. It's going to be a super fun experience. You're going to do all these fun things when you get there. And he goes through a 2-day process, goes through the whole check-in process, and then he gets up, but he's about to board his flight, and then all of a sudden he gets turned around. He's going to be the type of person, or she's going to be the type of person that's going to be like, okay. Right? But that's because they spend so much time living in the present moment and accepting and in acceptance and in surrender to what is, and not resisting the reality of how life is going to go versus how they want life to go or expect life to go. And understand that however it's going to happen is how it's meant to happen, because it's happening and there's no turning that around. There's no changing that. that's the best way I can explain to people that perspective is a choice. The meaning you give things is a choice.
Yeah.
And even though things can be shitty, and even though things can get hard, and things can be unjust and unfair and fucked up, it's still a choice how you're going to feel, and the meaning and the meaning that you're going to give things, which is ultimately going to determine how you feel.
Yeah. Ralph Smart, like, he says this great quote again, too. He's like, life isn't happening to you, life is responding to you, right? And so in the sense that you, like, it's just like, it's a parallel example with this, right? It's like the way you decide, like, the choice and the perspective that you take, reality is going to reflect back to you. It's like the law of attraction 101, right? And so I think with that, people can really start to see and understand that things are in their control more than they think, right? And not necessarily, I should make this a little bit more distinct. How they feel, what emotions they're taking on is more in their control than they think they are, because a lot of times they'll be in certain situations that where, like I was saying before, something will generate that same negative emotion, right? Doesn't matter what type of situation it is, it generates that same type of negative emotion, but they naturally have the same response to these situations. And I remember one time I was at work and I was at the salad bar making a salad. I'll never forget it. And this was the first time I really realized perspective is choice, right? And I remember, just, you know, like those type of people that you look at and they just look mean, right? Like, so the boss the restaurant I work at, if you're watching this, I apologize. I'm just like, he's just like naturally a mean guy, right? Like, he looks like a mean guy. He's a very nice dude, you know, very approachable, very good manners, you know, good guy. But like every time I see him, I just, it's hard for me to, like, you know, approach him.
Tense up. You're like,
tense up. Yeah. That's just how I naturally respond to him. And I remember, like, when he tried to, like, correct me on something, I was like at the salad bar. I think I, like, was using too much salad. He's like, Cal, stop using so much salad. And I naturally responded. I was like, I didn't respond externally. Internally, I was like, oh man, blah, 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 blah. You know, like, I was like super tense. I was like, blah, 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 like that big,
fuck this guy,
angry mob blob monster thing. Wasn't me just, like, you know, tensing up like crazy. And I was just like, I took this, like, outside perspective look, and I was like, dude, why do I always respond negative in these situations? I was like, oh,
there it is.
I was like, oh shit, like, I don't have to respond this way. And I was like, all right, whatever. And this is not to suppress the emotions and feelings that you're having, right? Yeah. It's just not adding on to them.
Changing your response.
Exactly. Right? You're accepting what you're already feeling, right? Yeah. Because if you suppress that shit, it's going to come back up and it's going to be even worse the next time it happens.
Agreed.
If you just accept how it is, right, and you respond in a proactive way, then you'll start to move towards a better way that is more preferable for you and the people that you're around.
Right.
So my question to you is, like, when did you first, like, realize that perspective was a choice? Because I don't know if you've ever, like, had a specific moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to get into too many details for lack of privacy for people.
For sure, yeah.
But when my parents split up, what I initially thought was, like, the world hates me, God hates me, you know, woe is me, my life is terrible. And then eventually, I don't know if it was 6 months, a year later, and this was when I first started to get my shit together, first started working on myself, first started doing things that are healthy for my life, that I realized that moment, right, when I figured that out, when I found out whatever the fuck was going on, was the best moment of my entire life. What I thought was the absolute worst thing that had ever happened to me was the best catalyst for the most growth, for the best improvement that I could ever have. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't. Because it gifted me with a situation that propelled me forward. I wouldn't be sitting with you today if that situation didn't happen. I wouldn't. Because it wouldn't have started me on this path that I'm on now. And so, for me, one of the worst situations that had ever happened to me, or so I thought, or so I'd put the label on it as, turned out to be the best. And that's when I realized that perspective is a complete choice. Complete choice.
Jeez, man. Yeah, that's... Yeah, because a lot of people won't see that. You know, it's like like you said it perfectly. You realize you thought the worst thing that happened to you turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to you. And
Exactly.
It's like, dude, it's like we're in one seat in an arena, right? And we have one perspective towards the court. Let's just say a big dude is in front of you and you can't see the court. You can move seats, right? And you can take a new perspective. And like we have a limited perspective, right? We don't have access to all the information. We're ignorant to some extent, but we do have the ability to change that perspective. It doesn't matter if everything seems to not be going your way. There has to be some type of positive that you can take out of a situation. And of course, it's important to realize the negatives. It's important to like utilize those to catalyze yourself into growth and to catalyze yourself into realizing those.
There's a difference between acknowledging the negatives and sulking in them,
Exactly.
and complaining about things, and
Yep.
being just pissed off and staying stuck in these negative emotions because it's comfortable and because you get attention when you complain.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a big thing too. We could probably touch on real quick. It's like people usually hold a perspective because it gets them attention, right? And because it's like you realize that you have to value your own happiness in your own life over getting that instant gratification from getting attention, right? Because that'll give you like some type of false happiness of like, oh, egoic happiness, I think is the right type of term of like, I'm the shit, I'm this, that, and the fourth. But no, you gotta like when you really find true happiness, true inner peace, the highest good, right? That I determined, right?
Yeah.
You'll start to realize that happiness is so much better because you don't need attention. You don't need that as a prerequisite. You don't need anything as a prerequisite. All you got to do is just, and maybe this is a prerequisite. It's a paradox, literally.
Yeah.
It's just let go of all that shit. Let go of what you think you have. Let go of like where you are. Dive within yourself and be beyond attention, beyond that. Utilize your own attention, focus on your own attention, and you'll find so much inner peace.
Right. Yeah, I think it's the biggest problem with people today is
Oh, dude, don't tell me.
just click on garage, man. It'll be good.
Okay, we're chilling. All right, but
We're good. The biggest problem that I see with people today is that they get a
Are we good?
I like that. I hope you clip that. You're just like
I've got to keep making eye contact.
the biggest problem I see with people today, especially with students in college and in high school, is that they get attention for their problems. And they have no idea how much that is completely fucking them. They have no idea,
Yeah.
right? Because think about it this way. If every single time you have a problem, you go and complain to people about it, you're getting attention for your problems, right? And your brain doesn't know anything objectively. It just knows how certain things make you feel, how certain experiences make you feel, right? So if every single time you have a problem, you go and complain to people about it and you're getting attention for that problem, you feel that dopamine surging through your system. You feel that oxytocin surging through your system. So your brain's like, every time we have a problem, we feel good. Let's have more problems. That's what your brain's going to do.
Yeah,
And so every time you have a problem, you're not going to be focusing on solutions.
Yeah.
You're not. And that's what 99% of people are doing. And that's why most people I don't give advice to. That's why when most people say, Jay, you're the life coach guy on TikTok, you tell me what you think I should do. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to tell you because you don't actually want to hear. You just want attention for your problems, which is fine. I'm just not the one to give it to you. I'm not. Like, that's why I always ask people the magic question of, do you really want to know the answer or are you just asking?
Yeah.
Right?
Because the people that really want to know the answer, they'll be willing to hear you out.
And most people that really want to know the answer don't need to ask the question. They don't.
Yeah.
Right? Most of that stuff is inner work that you figure out on your own.
Yeah.
Right? But if you genuinely do need advice and you genuinely do need coaching and help, like, of course I'll help you. Of course I'll help you. I'll help anybody. I don't care who you are. But if you're the type of person who's getting attention for your problems, you're never, ever, ever going to let go of your problems because your brain now correlated problems equals feeling good. And until you decide to no longer get attention for having problems, you're never going to get rid of them. You're never, because you don't want to. Yes, I do. You don't know how shitty my life. No. You don't want to get over your problems because you are still feeling significant every single time you have a problem. Every single time. And I see it with people in my building all the time, right? You know some of them, not naming names, like they're not even watching this anyways. I know they're not, but it doesn't matter. They come downstairs in they come downstairs in tears like multiple times a week, right? And I'm just like, oh fuck, here we go again, right? I'm not a piece of shit. I feel bad, I have compassion, but after a certain extent, it's like, how many times a week are you going to come downstairs crying? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you're coming downstairs because you want, like, a even better example. If you can post on your Snapchat story pictures of you crying, you don't want help for your problems. Yeah. You don't. You just want the feelings of significance attached to people saying, oh my God, what's wrong? Or whatever the fuck they're going to say. Yeah. Or the good feelings that come along with getting attention for complaining about your problems, right? Which is why I'm always like, no, I'm not going to tell you what you need to hear because you don't actually want to hear it. You just want to feel good complaining about whatever the fuck is going on. So, yes, the biggest problem I see in at least today's society, especially with the younger crowd, is getting attention for your problems. And until you decide to not get attention for your problems, you're going to keep those problems.
Damn. And I think we got to do a whole entire episode just on that. And I think a closing note that I could end off with, and I'll pass it over to you if you want to say anything else. But yeah, people search for significance, right? People search for problems. They need problems, right? When inherently you don't have any problems. You believe you have problems, right? And of course, those belief of problems, like we said before, like you believe you have a flaw, right? But that flaw in itself is whole and complete and you could fix it, right? But it's all a belief. That's all it is, right? It's unfortunate, but it's the truth, right? And I'm not saying, once again, to justify your life based on life being whole and complete. No, don't live your life that way. That is a bad way to live your life. Don't. No, there's a reason why we have good and bad, positive and negative, these oppositional stances, right? 100%. But if you're creating problems to gain significance, to gain the attention of others, those problems aren't going to be fixed anytime soon. They're only going to be worse because you're only healing potentially the symptoms and not the root cause of the problem.
Right, because the only time you can solve a problem is when you want the problem to be solved.
Completely.
That's the only time it can be solved.
Yeah.
And whether or not you consciously are aware of it or not doesn't fucking matter. You don't actually want the problem to be solved if you're continually getting attention for your problems.
100%, bro. And I think that's a great place to wrap this bad boy up. So, ladies and gentlemen, that has been episode 38 of the Conscious Cast. Shout out to my boy Jay for the great discussion. As always, where can they find you, my man?
At Jason's Galore on TikTok, Instagram. You can find me at you can find me at Jason's Galore, JASONSCALORA on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Twitter's kind of dry, but TikTok's good.
Elon Musk is bringing it back. But no, yeah. So make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe.
And take a look at the Jason's Galore show on Spotify and YouTube.
It's a good show.
And take a look at the Conscious fucking Cast.
Like, comment, and subscribe. We're clocking out.
Love yourself because I love you.
Stay handsome.
Peace.